The dawn air in my orchard was crisp, heavy with the scent of apple blossoms and dew-soaked grass, a quiet symphony broken only by the distant hum of a tractor across the valley. I stood on the weathered porch of my farmhouse, a steaming mug of black tea in hand, the wood beneath my boots creaking with the weight of a century. This land, passed down from my great-aunt Clara, a botanist who'd tamed these acres into a thriving grove, was my sanctuary. She'd been a woman of precision, her life's work rooted in the soil and defended by a fierce belief in boundaries. The private property, no entry without permission signs, nailed to every third tree along the perimeter, weren't just warnings, they were her legacy, reinforced by my own steel stakes after a few wayward campers tried their luck last summer. But this morning, the crunch of tires on my gravel drive wasn't the sound of lost tourists. It was deliberate, invasive, and it set my nerves on edge. There she was, Margaret Hensley, the self-crowned queen of the Willow Creek Community Association, her pastel blazer clashing with the orchard's earthy tones like a neon sign in a forest. She was flanked by a wiry man in a pressed polo, clutching a clipboard and sweating despite the cool air. The event coordinator, I assumed, his eyes darting from the gnarled apple trees to the stone wall marking my eastern boundary line, so clear it might as well have been drawn in fire. Margaret's gaze, though, was locked on my orchard's heart, the clearing where Clara's prized heirloom apple trees stood, their branches heavy with fruit. "We'll need this area cleared by 10, she declared, her voice sharp enough to slice through the morning's peace. No hello, no courtesy, just the grating clang of entitlement. She pointed a manicured finger toward Clara's favorite tree, a century-old Gravenstein that had weathered storms and time alike. The stage goes there, she said, as if proposing a strip mall and a cathedral. I took a slow sip of tea, the warmth steadying me as the world tipped toward madness. My silence, honed from years of courtroom cross-examinations and tense standoffs as county prosecutor, was a weapon. Margaret, predictably, rushed to fill it. "I'm Margaret Hensley, chair of the Willow Creek Events and Enhancement Committee," she said, each word puffed up with self-importance. She gestured at the clipboard man. "This is Oliver from Perfect Plans. He agrees this spot is ideal for the festival." Oliver offered a tight, nervous smile, his eyes begging for an escape route. Ideal for whom? I wondered, already cataloging her violations: trespass, assumption of authority, and a brazen claim on my private land. She didn't see the faint callus on my thumb from years of gripping a gavel's weight, nor the calm, predatory focus in my posture that my colleagues knew meant I was building a case. To her, I was just a stubborn farmer standing in the way of her grand vision for the town's apple festival. "You have 1 hour to move your equipment," Margaret continued, her eyes sweeping over my pruning shears, the wooden ladder leaning against a tree, and the worn journal of Clara's planting notes on the porch rail, as if they were trash. "My crew arrives soon, and we won't be liable for any disruption." The word was a velvet glove over a fist. Disruption meant destruction, erasure. It was bold, almost poetic in its arrogance, a perfect case of overreach. My great-aunt used to say, "Give a fool a long enough leash, and they'll tie themselves in knots." I was patient today, the kind of patient that watches a deer step into a trap, oblivious to the snap coming. Margaret, swollen with self-righteous zeal, launched into a sermon about the festival's importance to community pride. My orchard, deeded to Clara before the community association was even a twinkle in some bureaucrat's eye, was beyond their reach. I'd memorized their bylaws when I inherited this prosecutor's instinct, always checking the fine print. Her voice rose, tossing out names like confetti. Mayor Thornton, the Historical Society president, the entire Chamber of Commerce. They expected a standard, she said, implying my orchard was a blight on their polished image. I raised an eyebrow, a trick I'd perfected to signal quiet skepticism. "This is private property, ma'am," I said, my voice low measured. "You're trespassing. Please leave." Her face turned a shade of red that rivaled the apples. Oliver, the coordinator, looked like he wanted to melt into the ground, his clipboard now a flimsy shield. "Trespassing?" Margaret spat, as if I'd insulted her ancestors. "This is a community orchard. It's in the charter." She rummaged in her oversized tote, yanking out a dog-eared pamphlet, and brandishing it like a holy relic. Section 2, Clause C, she crowed. I didn't need to read it. MS. Hensley, I said, my patience a taut wire. This is my land, deeded and maintained for over 80 years. Your charter has no authority here. Leave now. My tone edged into the clipped cadence of a courtroom warning. Oliver tugged at her sleeve, mumbling about checking county records, but Margaret swatted him away. He's just being difficult, she snapped, her eyes burning with the fury of the self-deluded. Then came her cavalry, a bizarre procession against the orchard's quiet beauty. The festival's poster boy, a nervous young farmer named Caleb, looked like he'd rather be plowing fields than here, his flannel shirt damp with sweat. Two volunteers in garish vests clutched banners with the grim focus of soldiers, their chatter too loud, too forced. A stocky vendor, tattoos snaking up his arms, scanned the clearing for a power outlet, his face souring at the lack of one. See, Margaret proclaimed, waving at her crew like a conqueror claiming land. It's happening. You can't stop progress. They edged deeper into my orchard, emboldened by her nerve. One volunteer tripped over a root, nearly dropping her banner into a patch of Clara's prized roses. I leaned against the porch rail, my phone quietly recording the invasion. My neighbor, old MS. Hawthorne, a retired librarian with a knack for spotting nonsense, watched from her fence, her binoculars trained on the farce. She gave me a slow nod, a silent salute to the unfolding drama. Margaret's refusal to retreat sent her into a frenzy. He's threatening us, she shrieked, clutching her necklace like a damsel in a bad play. He's unhinged. He said he's armed. She was on her phone now, yelling at a 911 dispatcher, her voice a shrill crescendo of fabricated panic. He's trapping us here. We're terrified. The volunteers gasped. Caleb backed away, spooked. Oliver looked ready to bolt. I stood calm, armed only with tea and a deep knowledge of the Texas Penal Code. Her lies, false reports, misuse of 9/11 were stacking up, each a legal misstep. Sirens cut through the morning, and two county cruisers rolled up, lights flashing. Deputies Lawson and Cruz, young and sharp, stepped out, surveying the chaos. Margaret's theatrics, the garish vests, the vendor's scowl, and me, sipping cold tea on my porch. Margaret charged the deputies, a whirlwind of outrage. Thank heavens you're here, she cried. This squatter is terrorizing us. He's armed and dangerous. Deputy Lawson approached me, his demeanor steady. Sir, can you explain this? We got a call about threats. I nodded, calm as stone. Good morning, deputy. This is my private property, as the signs show. These folks trespassed 40 minutes ago. I asked them to leave. They refused. MS. Hensley then called you with false claims about weapons and threats. Lawson glanced at the signs, then at Margaret, who was ranting about community orchards. He asked for proof of ownership. Deeds inside, I said. Survey maps, too. My family's held this land since 1942. Margaret screeched, he's lying. The charter says this is public land. Her story was unraveling, but she doubled down, storming toward my porch and grabbing Clara's hand-carved bench. I'm setting up here, she bellowed. Her heel caught on a loose board, and she stumbled, flailing. He shoved me, she screamed, clutching her wrist. He assaulted me. Arrest him. The deputies exchanged a look, sensing the shift to a graver accusation. I exhaled, the chaos peaking. It was time. Deputy Lawson, I said, my voice now carrying the steel of my office. MS. Hensley has committed multiple crimes here. Criminal trespass under Section 30.05, false report to a peace officer under Section 37.08, and a false assault claim, potentially perjury if formalized. I pulled my wallet, revealing my prosecutor's badge. Prosecutor Daniel Hawthorne, Willow County. This is my property, an MS. Hensley is under investigation. The air stilled. Margaret's face collapsed shock, denial, then raw panic as her world imploded. Lawson straightened. Cruz froze. Oliver's clipboard hit the dirt. Margaret stammered. You're. Her bluster faded to a sickly pallor. Deputy Carter's coming to process her, I said, my tone final. She'll be charged. Margaret's protests dissolved into feeble, name-dropping Mayor Thornton, the Historical Society now desperate pleas. Lawson stepped forward. MS. Hensley. Come with us for your statement. Cruz ushered the stunned crew away. Handcuffs clicked, and Margaret, deflated, was led to a cruiser. The festival team scattered, Caleb muttering apologies, the volunteers fleeing in their vests. MS. Hawthorne gave me a thumbs up, later slipping a jar of her homemade jam over the fence. The orchard fell quiet again, the signs gleaming in the sun. My wife, Lily, would chuckle when I told her, her laughter a balm to the morning's madness. The law, wielded with precision, had cut clean, uprooting Margaret's arrogance. Clara would have smiled justice served, not with force, but with the truth of a property line and a fool's own leash. Margaret's audacity was her ruin, and her stunned face? That was just the sweet aftertaste.